Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I know, I am releasing 2 videos in 2 weeks. It is absolutely a miracle, but I'm throwing it back with a speed paint today and we are going to talk about mental health. I've been extremely candid about my mental health on this channel, and it's something that I enjoy talking about because I find it's a pretty hard thing to talk about. But with it being such a rough time right now, I feel like a lot of people are dealing with mental health issues, maybe for the first time, maybe their mental health is just worse than usual. There's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of anxiety going on, and that is what I have been struggling with most right now. I feel like I am just now getting to a place where I can pull myself out of the intense anxiety I was feeling. I feel like I was in a really, really dark place earlier in this year. I was having more frequent panic attacks. I was dealing with suicidal ideation again, which is not something that I've had to deal with for a very long time. And it's just been hella rough, guys. It's been hella rough. But I'm here to talk about it. I want to talk candidly about it. And I also want to tell you guys what I've been doing to kind of try to pull myself out of it. Because in my opinion, when it comes to mental health, it's hard to deal with. But if you kind of know what you're dealing with and maybe know from experience how to navigate it, it can make it easier. So I would like to talk about my experience with it and maybe help you navigate your own complicated emotional feelings at the same time. So buckle up, strap in. This is gonna be a big one. Real quick, this video is sponsored, so thank you to our sponsor. I will talk about them in a little bit. Also, disclaimer that the things I am talking about, I can only say for sure work for me. These things may not work for you. I am just sharing my experiences as someone who deals with mental illness. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. I'm definitely not saying that these ways are the best, but they are what work for me. Okay, so the first thing I kind of wanted to address is when I feel anxious, it is extremely beneficial for me to try to pinpoint why I am feeling so anxious. Now, I kind of organize these into 2 categories in my brain. There are things that I can control that make me anxious and things that I cannot control that make me anxious. For example, something that I can control is when the kitchen is messy, it makes me really anxious, right? And it turns into this snowball effect where the kitchen is messy, I don't want to go in and clean it, so it ends up becoming more messy, and it just kind of snowballs into this place where I'm not even going into the kitchen, I'm just like grabbing a piece of bread and eating that for dinner, and that's not helping anyone. That's not good for my anxiety, that's not good for my physical health. So what I can do is I can pinpoint, okay, what is making me anxious? The kitchen is messy. I am going to try today to clean the kitchen to relieve my anxiety. That is something that I can control, it is something that I can do, and it's something that I can help fix. Dealing with that kind of anxiety is a lot easier for me than the other type of anxiety that I feel, which is about something that I cannot control. There are a lot of people getting sick right now, and it's a really scary time. But that is something that I cannot control myself. I can only control my actions, but I cannot control the outcome. And that is something, that feeling of not being able to be in control of something, especially something so serious as this, causes me a crazy amount of anxiety. And it is largely the biggest reason why I have been struggling so much lately is because there's so much that I can't control right now, so much that is so new and kind of uncharted territory, like not only for me, but for the whole world. It literally was paralyzing me to the point where all I could do was sit in the shower and have panic attacks and cry. And here are some of my coping mechanisms. So I do want to quickly say, like, my frame of mind during this time was very, very much all I felt was anxiety, right? I would wake up anxious, go to sleep anxious, and that was kind of encompassing my entire being for a while. And it I think it just took a lot of time to get used to that feeling, to the point where I could pinpoint it and say, okay, I am feeling way more anxious than usual. It's because of this. And now that I know that I'm feeling anxious and I know why I'm feeling anxious, I can try to combat it. And that's when I turn to my specific coping mechanisms that I have for dealing with anxiety when the thing causing me anxiety is outside of my control. The first coping mechanism that I want to talk about is therapy. Yay! Therapy is amazing. Therapy literally saved my life. If you take anything from this video, it's please consider getting therapy. Even if you don't have an established mental illness, I believe wholeheartedly that every single person can benefit from seeing a therapist at least a few times. Now, that being said, I know it is extremely difficult to see a therapist right now. I myself do not have a therapist at the moment because I cannot go in to see my therapist because she is in a hospital and I cannot go into a hospital setting right now. So it's hard. But if you do have the option, I think even telecommunicating therapy could be very useful, especially if you don't know what coping mechanisms would work for you best. Therapy helped me be able to not only recognize my own feelings, but be able to recognize which coping mechanisms and which strategies work best for me. Having a mental health professional who knows how the brain works and knows how the brain tries to fight you every single day, having someone there who understands that and can help you work through that is literally life-changing. My life has literally been changed by therapy. So it is one of the most important things I think you can do for your mental health. Kind of digging deeper into that, through therapy, I have realized that cognitive behavioral therapy is very beneficial for me. There's many different kinds of therapy, even just like talking, just talk therapy can be really helpful for people. But after a lot of trial and error, me and my therapist came to the conclusion that cognitive behavioral therapy works best for me. Now, in a nutshell, cognitive behavioral therapy is kind of just like challenging the way your brain makes you feel anxiety. Anxiety is something that happens in your brain, right? It's a bunch of intrusive thoughts. It's a bunch of routines that your brain kind of fall into, these kind of thinking traps. And it's hard to break out of those, right? But what I love about cognitive behavioral therapy is it's just kind of being like, okay, I acknowledge that my brain is making me feel this way. My brain is making me feel anxious. So what can I do right now to help alleviate that? And I really like being able to kind of feel like I can take control of my anxiety. Now, there's nothing I can do to make the anxiety go away. And that's another thing I like about this kind of therapy is it's kind of admitting that your brain just does this. This is what your brain does. It's something that your body does. And you can't get rid of that. Like, the point isn't to get rid of anxiety, right? Because it's always going to be there. But the point is being able to help you get through it. It's being able to say, I am feeling like this, my brain is doing this, but here's what I can do to help me get through this time. There's nothing about this that's like, doing this will get rid of your anxiety forever completely and you'll be great. And that was a misconception I had about therapy and anxiety before I actually started therapy for anxiety, was that, oh, I just need to get rid of this. I just need to stop feeling anxious. And the point is, at least for me, I cannot stop feeling anxious. I cannot stop my brain from falling into these traps, but there are some things I can do to help me through it. And for me, that is cognitive behavioral therapy. There are a bunch of things I do inside my brain that's hard for me to kind of articulate, like the kind of challenges that I do in my brain to stop myself from falling down these rabbit holes of spiking and circling anxiety. But something that I can do, and something that I feel comfortable talking about, is I like to do a little ritual of putting myself in a cozy space. And this is coping mechanism like 1.5, because I think it's still part of cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's kind of also its own little thing. But what I do is I create my little cozy space. It's basically a safe space where I can do some kind of ritual and create a place for myself where I can feel safe and I can feel like I can comfortably and safely work through my anxiety. I find that for me, doing a ritual or a routine helps me feel more secure. So doing a ritual with the intent of being like, I am doing this to work through my anxiety is very, very beneficial for me. So what I will do is I will create like a safe space on my couch, basically. I also have a bad habit of withdrawing into myself. I've even hidden in closets before because I feel like I almost want to escape my anxiety. So I will literally hide away from it. But I challenge that desire to hide, and instead I create a space for myself on my couch, not hidden in a closet, and I will surround myself with blankets and pillows. I'll make myself a little fort sometimes, and I will just create a space that's comfortable. Something else that's really helpful for me is having textures that I can touch. I feel like a lot of my anxiety is so wrapped up in my brain that if I have something that I can physically hold, like a fuzzy blanket or even my dog, it kind of helps ground me. So I make sure to put a lot of textured things around me too. So like a fuzzy blanket, like I mentioned, my dog, a pillow with like tassels, anything that I can just kind of like touch and hold and feel in my hands kind of just helps me get into a more present space. Anything that I can do with my 5 senses helps me feel more in my body and more in charge of me presently. So yeah, doing a ritual, very, very helpful. And of course, your ritual wouldn't have to look like mine. Doing some kind of creating a nice and safe space for yourself, I think is very, very beneficial. Now, the second coping mechanism I want to talk about is CBD oil. This is also the sponsor of this video. This video is sponsored by Jupiter CBD oil, but I just want to make it very, very, very clear that I do not take a sponsorship that I do not 100% endorse. In fact, when Jupiter reached out to me, they were like, hey, we're interested in working with you, but please try our product. Don't feel like you need to do the sponsorship, but we want you to try it. We want you to see if it works for you. If it doesn't, don't worry, we won't go through with the sponsorship, but if you do like it, maybe we can work something out. That being said, I feel very comfortable supporting Jupiter and recommending it to other people. I have a lot of intrusive thoughts when it comes to anxiety. I have a lot of circling thoughts where I think about one thing that's causing me anxiety and I just kind of ruminate on that until I throw myself into a panic attack a lot of the times because I'm just thinking about things and I can't get rid of them. What I like about CBD oil is it doesn't cure anything. I don't want to sit here and say it cures my anxiety because that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that using CBD oil, in addition to all my other coping mechanisms, in addition to therapy, in addition to cognitive behavioral therapy, it helps me work through those kind of cycling thoughts a lot easier. Basically, what CBD oil does for me is it helps quiet my brain. My brain can be very loud and very mean sometimes, but taking CBD oil kind of puts like a blanket on my brain and it quiets those thoughts. So I'm not focusing on them anymore. And instead, I can focus on my coping mechanisms and what I can do to help myself through this period of anxiety. I have been using it for a few weeks now, and I do notice like an actual change. It helps me feel relaxed. It helps, like I said, quiet those thoughts. And it also helps me sleep better, which is amazing because I have so much trouble falling asleep. So it's just been a really nice positive thing in my life. And I'm really happy that I can add it to my arsenal of anxiety combating skills. A little bit about Jupiter in particular. I did get to go on a Zoom call with one of the owners, and he's a very sweet guy, I will say. And he told me a little bit about their process, and I'm going to share a little bit with you because I just think it's fascinating. It is 100% USDA organic, and all of their hemp comes from a family-owned farm in Vermont, which I think is super cool. So they have like a hand in like the actual growing of the hemp plants, which I think is very neat. Obviously, CBD oil will not work for everyone. It may work for some people, it may not work for others. So they do have a 30-day guarantee where you can try the oil. And if you find that you don't like it or it doesn't really work for you, you can return it. Like, no hassle, no worries. Jupiter is being awesome also and giving all of my subscribers a 10% discount. So if you would like to try it for yourself, you can use my coupon code Monique for 10% off. So I do want to reach out and say a big thank you to Jupiter for sponsoring this video, supporting my channel, and also just like making like a really dope product. I do want to say also that there is a misconception that CBD oil makes you feel quote unquote high. That is not true. It just kind of makes you feel, or at least for me, it makes me feel very relaxed and very chill. Like the best way I can describe it is it gives me vibes. It helps me vibe, but I don't feel high, which is great because I have tried the devil's lettuce and I'm not a fan of that high feeling. So it was a huge plus for me that it doesn't make me kind of feel like that. It just helps alleviate anxiety for me. Now, the third and last coping mechanism that I want to talk about is purely just distraction. Especially right now, I had a huge, hard time with this. When everything started happening, I was glued to my phone and it was wrecking my mental health. I felt, understandably, like I needed to be aware of what was going on. So I was looking at my phone constantly. I was reading all kinds of news articles. I was just kind of surrounding myself in what was happening. But the longer this went on, the more I realized that it was absolutely wrecking my mental state because it's all I was focusing on and it was all I was thinking about. So my next coping strategy is just distraction. It is very hard for me to think about anything besides the state of the world right now. But it is not helping me deal with my emotions in a productive way when I am obsessively thinking about everything. Something that helps me a lot is distracting myself, even if it's just for a short period of time. I do feel anxiety about missing something or being unaware of what's going on. So something that's helpful to me is something called behavioral activation. And my therapist described this as basically just scheduled fun time. So I will take some time of my day, maybe an hour or so, and I will do something that's just fun for me. I will literally turn my phone off and hide it from myself so I'm not tempted to look at it. And I will do something that makes me happy and makes me feel good. So this is going to differ, of course, from person to person. But for me personally, I like to play Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is actually a huge help in my anxiety. My therapist once wrote me a prescription for Animal Crossing, so I would feel better about playing it when I felt guilty about doing things that brought me joy. But Animal Crossing is one. Painting and drawing, of course, is another. I like to paint kind of darker, surreal stuff like this when I'm going through a bad mental time, so that's definitely a really big distraction for me as well. Plus, it's a good way to kill like 6 hours is to draw something. I also like to cross stitch. I like doing things that are simple and repetitive because it can kind of get me into almost like a meditative place and nothing that requires too much thought. So stuff like Animal Crossing, cross stitch, drawing that doesn't require a lot of brain power and kind of allows me to just kind of go on autopilot and do something. Very, very, very helpful. Doing this just kind of gives my brain a break from all of the horrible things that are surrounding me at the moment. And that break is surprisingly effective in helping just calm down your anxiety so you can go forward with the rest of your day. The last thing, of course, is to also reach out to a friend. I know how extremely difficult it can be to reach out to someone when you're feeling anxious. Like I mentioned before, my instinct is to withdraw and hide away from people because I don't want to come across like I am a burden or burdening them with my anxiety. But I promise you that the people in your life love you, and if you're going through a hard time, they want to help you through it, I promise. So try reaching out to a friend, even if you don't say like, hey, I'm anxious, can you help me? Even just being like, hey, do you want to watch a movie on Zoom? Or hey, do you want to play a game together? It can be a really powerful thing in just helping you feel less isolated, less alone, and less anxious. So that is going to be it for me today. Again, thank you to our sponsor, Jupiter. Make sure to use that coupon code if you would like to try it for yourself. If you don't, no worries, but I think it's a cool option, and it could be something that you can add to your weapon arsenal. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I appreciate you guys giving me a platform for which I can talk about my anxiety and my mental struggles. It honestly means the world to me. And I hope something in this video resonated with you, and maybe you yourself can try something new to help combat your own anxiety. So, yeah, I love you all. Please stay safe, stay healthy, stay mentally healthy, and I will see all of you in the next video. Bye, guys.